So this Create Cell Bank module is about identifying user needs. Now, there's over 7.5 billion people in the world. And if you look at your sweet spot, what areas really appeal to you? What are you good at? What market needs are there, et cetera? You can start to determine who's going to become your customers. Now, it's rare that everybody in the world is going to become your customer. So you have to apply some sort of filtering to that. And so let's start with yourself. And, if you go through the process of understanding yourself, and the technical term for that is your user profile, it's sometimes called your avatar, it'll help you better understand larger groups' needs. So let's just assume we're picking this one person out, and that is you. So what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What activities do you do that bring you joy? Some examples could be anything: sports, exercise, playing piano, reading, volunteering, traveling, watching movies, dancing, entertaining friends, attending sporting events, texting while driving. So stop the video right here and think about this. Think about these questions and start jotting down in a journal these particular answers to the questions. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just, this is really important for you to understand, particularly this slide. Because if you're going to start a business and you do it in something that you don't enjoy, the first time you hit a rough spot, or you hit a pothole in the road, that's project management speak, you're gonna quit. So pick something that you like. So once you've got the answers to these questions, move forward to the next one. What are you really good at? What would you or other people consider you to be an expert, or at least very accomplished in? Now, there's this is wide open. You could be good in professional landscaping, professional photography. You have lots of education and degrees in one or more particular fields. You play piano professionally. You're a public speaking professional. You're good at texting while driving. That's a joke. You're good at thinking logically. Stop the video here and think and just write this stuff down. Don't be modest. This is a time to put down what you and other people might say you're really good at. Because again, if you're going to start a business, you want to make sure you've got something that you have some expertise. If you're just a me too, or hey, that looks like fun, it's something that you want to dive into, things can get hard, and you want to make sure that you have the expertise to help you get through that. Okay, so once you've started up the video again, what things bug you or annoy you the most? What do you see, hear, smell, feel, taste, intuit that you think you could make better? But, the making better is something that you want to, certainly think about. Because it bugs me about world hunger. It's a distribution problem. But with my expertise, I really can't do too much about that. I'm trying, but I still, so you want to think about that just in terms of the bugs. I've got sales funnels where you download a freebie and you get hundreds of emails afterwards. In other words, you got into somebody's sales funnel. and you thought, oh, this is a free lunch. Well, they are trying to cultivate you to ultimately turn you into a customer and keep you a customer so that they can increase the lifetime value of you, of you as a customer. So sales funnels, video conferences with no point, no agenda. Let's just get together and talk and do things. And companies not delivering on what they promised, having to fill out timesheets, managers that give little or no direction, not being able to text while driving. That's a joke as well. From Stanford, both Bob McKim and Jim Adams, who you've met in a previous module, both had the students create what was called a bug list. And it was no categories. It was just what bugs you, and things like this would go on the list. Well, what I want you to do is pause the video in a little bit here and think up categories. And we're going to, go over how to find categories that are big, but categorize your life. You could do it as general as home life, work life, travel life. And within each one of those, come up with maybe some subcategories, like getting up in the morning. What bugs you about that? What about your morning toiletry? What bugs you about that? What about eating breakfast? What about other things, taking a shower? If you drill down in, you can come up with dozens and dozens of things that bug you. And not to jump too far ahead, but these bugs, if they bug you, they might bug other people. And that's something that you can find out. So create a bug list, and you can do it with or without categories. I'm not going to look at your bug list because there can be personal things that are on there. So, I don't want to see it, but I want you to do it, because if you do it by writing it down, what's going to happen over time is that you're going to be able to walk into a room, scan the room, and find out things that bug you. And that sensitivity, that being able to find things that aren't right or that annoy you, can lead to discovering products that you could design or products that you could sell to other people that have that same bug. So pause the video and at least jot down 10 things that bug you. And then when you're ready, start it up again. Okay, so now you know what brings you joy, you know what you're good at, you know what bugs you. Well, what are your motivations for starting a business? In particular, how passionate are you about those particular motivations? Is it to use your expertise and talents to help other people, to be your own boss, to create a side hustle now that could lead to a real company later, or to make some extra cash on the side, to break through some barriers, to have some flexibility in your work hours, to cut it down from 18 to 16 hours a day or something like that, to pursue your passions, that you're passionate about creating something from scratch. Now, there's dozens of other items that are up here. Those are just some items to get you thinking. And the reason I drew a brick wall down there is because in any new endeavor, you're going to run into 1, 2, 3, ... some number of walls as you're getting started. And if you are not passionate about what you're doing, The first wall that you hit, you're going to have the grass is always greener, then you're going to go do something else. So it's really important that you think of this first. So pause the video and jot down what you're passionate about and why, and your motivations for starting a business. And then when you're ready, start it back up. So now that you've done those, we've left off one, and that is the market size, but of what you find out, but we haven't gotten there yet. I just want to, foreshadow that we're going to cover that. But identifying user needs is really about empathy, and it's about establishing empathy through observations, engagement, and listening with your target user or user group. And you want to understand how or why they do certain things. What are their emotional or physical needs? How do they think about their world? What's meaningful to them? What bugs them? There's your bugs. And what ideas do they have? Hugely important. Again, you want to figure out, are they extroverted or introverted? Are they an optimist or optimistic? Are they pessimistic? Are they a leader or a follower? Nurturing or self-centered? Creative or analytical? There's, again, dozens of other characteristics that you can go look at when you're looking at users. And do they blame others, or do they take responsibility? So this is just when you're getting ready to talk to people, you want to essentially, you're going to use the input that comes from this to create an avatar, which is essentially your generalization of that particular user group. And you can have multiple avatars for the same user group. So when you're talking to them, what's their most pressing problem? What do they say? What do their family or friends say about this problem? What are their, and who or what is helping them get around this pressing problem right now? Who might be, you got people, there might be some products. And the last bullet is, if the pressing problem was solved, what would be the next most pressing problem? And that's really important, because sometimes if you identify a hierarchy of problems, you can solve multiples at the same time. Now, when you're talking to people, you might notice that there's a disconnect between what target users do and what the target users say. And really notice the shortcuts or workarounds that one or two or more target users have developed to get something done or to accomplish something. That is a rich area for either developing a product or finding a pre-existing product that you can market to these people. And details that are in the stories that the target users might tell, and they're not even realizing that they're telling you. So, the previous slides give some tips on the types of questions you can ask yourself to determine your user profile, but you can also ask other people, either individuals or groups. And when you're talking to individuals and groups, make sure you tell them that you're going to keep this information private, and tell them how you're going to do it, and that, if you do any reports, they're going to be anonymized so that you can't go figure out who that is. And, I guess this last bullet is really important, and it is, it is tricky for professionals. It's really tricky for non-professionals. And if you are in a tough situation, you might want to hire a professional interviewee or interviewer to interview the interviewees. So now, your sweet spot. We talked about this before. Many of you have come into Create Cell Bank with a pre-existing idea. In the past, I've had students that have come in, I've got this great idea, for a product or a service to build a business around. And, a product, and we'll cover this in more detail, can be physical or it can be digital. A service can be something that you do in person for somebody. You can do it virtually through Fiverr or Upwork or any of those others. But you could build a business around this thing. And the purpose of this next section is to help you test your pre-existing idea and potentially discover other product or service areas that might be just right for you, or as I like to call it, that are in your sweet spot. Now, we're going to use this term sweet spot for the rest of the semester. And if you go into Create Cell Bank 2, we'll also use your sweet spot. So, here's some of the elements. Does, whatever your sweet spot category, does it make you smile? Are you an expert? Have you identified user needs or bugs in this category? Is there a good enough size market for the product? And are you motivated to stick with this category, this idea, through highs and lows? So, how do you find sweet spot products? Once you've got your sweet spot, so on Amazon, select at least 3 categories. You just go to Amazon.com, and on the left, they've got all sorts of categories, and we'll go into this in more detail in a bit, but within each of select 2 subcategories that meet the sweet spot criteria for you. Do the same on AliExpress.com, but in different categories. You should have about 6 categories total and 12 subcategories with good breadth to choose from. And what you want to be really careful about is you don't want to select categories or subcategories that are too broad, that have huge amounts of competition. And so that's why you want to go down at least to the subcategory or beneath. And if any of those are still too broad, keep drilling down in. There's 5, 6 levels of drill down available, both on Amazon and AliExpress. So start an Excel spreadsheet. List the short names of the category name, the subcategory name, and 3 products in each of your chosen subcategories. So you should have 36 rows that look like this. Well, the category is consumer electronics, if you like electronics, sports and action video camera, and there's the GoPro accessory. There's the 4K video camera from Ekin, and then the Ekin camera remote control, and keep going down like this. Now add in 4 columns relating to your sweet spot, and fill in on a scale of 1 to 5 your estimate in each of those 4 columns, with 1 being low and 5 being high. So you got a category, subcategory, the product. Do you love it? Kind of. Might be a 2, or you really love it, it's 4 or 5. Do you have a lot of expertise? 4 or 5. Is there a user need? 4 or 5. Is there a good market? And we will cover how to find a market, and then your particular motivation. And the last thing you want to add is a total. So you want to total up all those scores. I had one student that came in that absolutely loved photography, loved videography. Um, he was a professional. He used to do weddings. He would do special events. Um, and one of the things that was coming up was smoke bombs. And he was using that in his um, particular professional practice. But the user need was, for him, it was really hard to get those. And, they were expensive. Um, but being an expert in that, he did some research and he saw that the market was growing for those. And his motivation was he was passionate about it. And as a result, shutterbombs.com came out of it. And Shutterbombs is doing really well. He's had, some six-figure months that he's done. And it all came from Create Cell Bank 1. He scaled it in Create Cell Bank 2. And he did exactly this particular type of process. So you're going to basically have the top 6 scores. And I'm just going to go back. So it'll be, the scores are going to be on a scale of 1 to 5: love, expertise, user need, market, and motivation. So for each of those 36 rows, you're going to have a total. Then you're going to find the top 6 and then add a couple word description and include your thoughts. Are there features that you would eliminate on that product to reduce the manufacturing cost? Are there features that you would add to make the products better? Could you manufacture the product less expensively than you could purchase it for? Now, be really, really, really careful here, because that is the trap that a lot of startups get into, is they think they can make it cheaper, smaller, faster, better. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. So then after the notes column, add another column called user that supports the user needs score you gave. Who's the user group that's going to use this thing? Now, we talked about bugs. I just wanted to put this in. Grace Hopper, who was one of the early computer scientists, she used it in a logbook because it was actually the cause of they had a electromechanical computer that had a malfunction, and it was a bug. And the technicians actually traced the error in the Mark II computer to a moth trapped in the relay, and that's where the term bug came from. So there it is. So the bug was removed and taped it up to her notebook. It's just incredible. So next time you hear the word bug, you know that it actually came from something. And, I said both Jim Adams and Bob McKim had us keep a journal. And, here's one that's still, it bugs me that a typical USB plug, it connects only one way and it wastes a bunch of time. It's like, why? It came out of Intel. And it's like, why couldn't they make it so that you could reach like behind a computer where you can't really see, you're doing it by feel, and whichever way you put it in, hermaphroditic, so you could flip it upside down and it would go in, or right side up. And it bugs me that it's so hard to open the baggie to pick up dog droppings during walks. Why? You're sitting there, the dog wants to keep going, and you're trying to figure out which end opens up, which end is sealed, and they keep that a big mystery. So those are just 2 examples of bugs. So we're going to turn our attention now to finding holes in the market where current products don't necessarily satisfy the user need or your internal analysis. These holes can also be called bugs because it generally bugs you that these holes even exist. Within each of the 6 categories, write down at least 2 bugs. So you've picked bugs before, or the categories before, and again, they might be in your subcategory, they might not. It doesn't matter. Just start writing these bugs. So earlier, I had you just start writing down bugs with no categorization. Now I want you to think about categorization. And again, we talked about that it's got personal information in it. So that is a very, very, very high level overview of identifying user needs.